This episode of the Jesse T Show is brought to you by 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. This year, many people have lots of money questions. Finding the right information can be tough, and more importantly, finding someone that you like and have confidence in is even tougher. If you'd like to keep more of your money, and more importantly, if you'd like to stop trading time for money and live the life you deserve, contact 46 and 2 Wealth Partners today. Right now, Jesse T Show listeners will receive a free 15-minute phone call that will leave you with at least one idea on how to keep or make more money. Text promo code Jesse T Show to phone number 202-301-4503. Lane, brother, welcome.
Appreciate you allowing me to be here.
Man, you know, we've kind of been put on a path to connect. You're a really good friend, a brother of yours, Stephen Kuhn, who's come into my life through an introduction, through another guy that we're all connected with, Zach Knight. You know, there's like these little circles of people that kind of run into each other for reasons. And, there's a lot of things that you've experienced that, we've kind of had similar backgrounds on, from military and from business and different things that we're into personally, that I think you're just one cool dude, brother. And I think you need to get out there and have your story shown to the few people that haven't heard it yet. So I just want to talk about kind of your story, your journey, what you're working on today, and a little bit more about you.
Yeah. And thanks for having me. And it's just one of those things where the journey is synchronistic if you allow it. Allowing the right kind of people, the right connections, the right insights, the right ideas, the right things coming into your life will come to you if you allow it. And I think that we've come to a place in our lives where we're allowing the good stuff, we're allowing the synchronicities, the connections, the good people. And let's continue that.
Yeah, brother. So let's dive into it, man. So I want a little context, if you could. And again, it doesn't have to be linear, but what was life like before Green Beret? Because for those people that don't know, and I'm speaking from the outsiders, barely know enough about it, you could speak deep on it, but Green Berets are some of the most badass SF, special forces operators that are in the world. And if you ask them, they'll tell you they are. If you ask a Navy SEAL, they'll say that they are. But with Navy Green Berets, you can go in and overthrow governments and do crazy shit. But before that, what was life like?
Yeah, so I joined the military at age 17. I grew up in Oklahoma. And I had a lot of ambition. I, played some sports, was never a starter, always the sixth man, basketball, and, ran track and became an Eagle Scout. And so I had a lot of energy, a lot of passion, a lot of drive. But when I was getting out of high school, I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? And a good friend of mine, we were like, hey, let's do something together, whatever that is. And he had brought up the Army Rangers, and I had barely even heard of the military, like Army Rangers or anything like that. And I was like, hey, maybe we should do college or something. And so in our infinite wisdom at age 17, we both played rock, paper, scissors for our destiny, basically. So we did best 2 out of 3. My friend AJ, he won. And so that's how we both joined the military. And so there was a period of joining the military at 17 and about 2 years or so where I had joined as an intel analyst, actually, which is almost the exact opposite of a Green Beret of what you hear, right? But at age 17, I was like, okay, gathering intel on the ground. This will be really cool, reconnaissance. And I don't know what I was thinking. I was 17, right? So my actual job was anything but that. So I got to my first duty station in Germany, and I was like, crushing PT, just doing the best that I could, and, just excelling, at a really high level, really fast paced. And, so I was like, man, there's got to be something more, it got to be, something greater or something more beyond. And so I walk into the PX area, and on the door, there was a flyer that said, hey, join Special Forces, check out this brief. And I was like, what the hell is Special Forces? And so I was pretty naive at age 17, age 18. And so anyways, I go to the brief. It's in the auditorium, in the post in Germany. And so I walk in and you walk in from the back and you have all those rows of seats. And they had this huge projector. And it was just these dudes just falling out of the sky, shooting guns, blowing stuff up on 4-wheelers, doing everything that I was like, man, I don't know what all that stuff is, but I want to do it. And so I ended up signing up for Special Forces Assessment Selection, SFAS, made it. And then there's a whole 2-year Special Forces qualification course. And so, up until this point, it's me having a lot of drive, ambition, almost this like unfiltered power. And I didn't have any direction to point it towards. And initially the military gave me that, but then I was looking for an even more kind of pinpointed focus on where I could place my attention, my energy, my focus, and to be able to get that accomplishment or that thing that I wanted to get out of it.
Damn, brother. That's a lot to unpack there. So what was your first experience like, even during selection? This is the time period for people listening and watching where, you're still being vetted out, and they want to make sure that you physically, mentally, emotionally, teamwork wise, like that's the biggest thing too, is because you're being selected by the teams that you work with. Cause it's, when you get to that level, your battle buddy, as we used to call it, is basically like your life support. And if you don't have someone around that you can't trust, that can't do the job, can't pull their weight and then some, that's a liability, unfortunately. So like, what was your experience like? You said you were crushing it. Were you just naturally athletic, like doing OCR, like obstacle courses, like running through and crushing stuff, and then like weapons systems, like what was your experience like?
Yeah, so selection was tough, no doubt. It's tough for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a marathon runner. It doesn't matter if you can lift, bench press 300 pounds. Selection is about being almost the most well-rounded person that you can be, both mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And to be able to carry heavy stuff for long periods of time while you are solving problems on the fly. And so selection is a really, really tough 3 weeks, 24 days, or, I think they may change the exact days, but it's about 3 weeks. And they have different weeks dedicated to different things. So land navigation, you have team week, and then you have a whole bunch of different types of psychological tests, aptitude tests. And, all this stuff is really difficult because you have to prepare yourself, and, one of the things that really helped me was physically preparing allows you to save your reserve of the mental preparation for when you really need it. And what I mean by that is so if you're thinking about running a marathon, if you're training for a marathon, the first 20 miles are pretty easy. As far as, if you're training, you're doing all the right things, nutrition, then those last few miles can be, really, really difficult. And that's where the mental kicks in versus somebody that isn't physically trained. The first 2 miles are pretty easy, and then everything else is and they probably don't finish. Right. So that's the kind of preparation that I went through, and that I recommend for anybody that's going through something like that, is especially if it's mental and physical. Always prepare as much as you can for the physical, because that's the easiest thing, because that's your body. All you're doing is basically muscle memory of doing that kind of activity. And then the real test is the mental, and to be able to not give up, not quit, continue to use your resources, your brain power to solve problems on the fly. And also a lot of times people's true colors, their expression of who they really are, is very visible in those moments. So everybody knows those people that when they're under stress, they really lash out to other people. Yep. Or, those other people that are, when they're under stress, they are the calm, cool cucumbers that are making everybody else feel calm and cool with them. And so, yeah, for me, looking back, I was also humbled. I'm continually humbled all the time. But it's one of those things where, I was naturally gifted to a certain degree, but then there's always somebody faster. There's always somebody stronger. There's always somebody mentally more tough. And the thing that I found was, for me personally, through my SF career, just being at the top, 90% well-rounded in stamina, lifting, sprinting, mental clarity, focus, drive, not quitting, all these different things that if you take away one of those things, you're not going to have a Green Beret. If you take away a guy that can't, ruck march for 26 miles in the dark, or can't handle stress of the unknown in a combat deployment, or handle the stress of rapidly learning a skill that you need for your next mission. Or so all of these things that are critical components to make that well-rounded whole person kind of concept. And so that's what I found out about myself, is that very well-rounded, very, always pushing each, aspect of myself to the limit. And, it's taken me pretty far.
There's two pieces I want to talk about that you mentioned there. And it's like, you hear a lot of these people. I follow like David Goggins and Tim Kennedy, and these are some of the more celebrity-based SF guys, some of the storied guys that put themselves out there. But, it sounds like from both of them, even though that Tim Kennedy's got more of a personality for celebrity. David Goggins is kind of like the begrudged, like doesn't really want the celebrity, but he's such a fucking badass that he just gets it anyway.
Yeah.
Were you like the Grayman? Like I've heard of this term, the Grayman, where like you want to kind of blend in but still stand out at the same time by your effort and your accomplishments. Like, or were you someone who was on the front, like kind of with that look at me until you were humbled kind of thing?
Yeah. So I think I was kind of in between gray and leader at that moment, because I was E4 at the time, and anybody that's E7 or below can try out for special forces in the enlisted. And so I was a younger guy, and I had less experience than many of the other guys that had tried out for selection. So, I wasn't a gray guy. I wasn't a gray man, but I was, I definitely wasn't, taking charge of E6s, E7s, people that were ranking higher than I was as a default.
Yeah.
Because, I just didn't have that experience, and I was there to learn in a way, but I was there to give it my all, and I laid it all on the line. And being able to just, progress fast, that's been kind of my signature move, is to jump into a difficult situation or some kind of challenge that many people either never attempt, or they do and they don't succeed. And somehow I've been able to kind of continue to push that edge and be able to excel fast, learn quickly, and apply all the lessons learned, in a very swift pace. And so, I wasn't the gray man, but I definitely wasn't the gung-ho leader either at the time. But, that's just the nature of the journey. And you start where you're at. I was at E4. I was, 20-year-old. And, so that's what happened. You start where you're at and keep going.
Grow where you're planted. I love it. My mentor always talks about that. It's like wherever you are, just kind of start from there and grow from there. But the other piece that I wanted to bring up, because I think this is super important in life, number one, but in family and relationships and business and any kind of physical pursuit, not quitting. And this is a whole thing. This is a whole genre of like self-help books and, thought leaders and people that are, hucksters out there trying to peddle all this stuff. Right. So for you, what was the not quitting mentality like, and where did you get that from? Was it growing up in Oklahoma? I think you said you grew up in, and was it, did you grow up kind of tough and strong-willed, or was it like a life-changing moment where something just dawned on you? Where did that not quitting will come from, and how did you operate with that?
Yeah, looking back, I think it really was Boy Scouts,
Okay.
of all places. Yeah. And mixed with sports, growing up as a kid. And, because I was in Boy Scouts then, or, Cub Scouts, and then I was in Boy Scouts, and then I kept on going until I got to Eagle Scout. And I think that really solidified that no quit mentality of, you know what, I'm just going to keep going. Like, I don't know how the journey's going to go. I may not be the best guy out there, or the most strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest, but if you don't quit, you're going to outlast the most people out there. And I think that's the root of it. But I definitely grew that, in the military with so in the Boy Scouts, they have the scout laws, and they have these kind of principles that the scouts live by. And I think that's really important at a young age to have focus of specific types of words, principles, values. And then from there, for me, it was able to amplify those principles to a more meaningful way by me applying those principles of serving something outside of myself, a greater mission, protecting freedom, these kinds of things that you associate with the military and service. And so I think that by applying those principles, I was able to really latch on to something within me and say, you know what, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to see this through. And I think that that's one of the most simplest, most powerful things that anybody that's trying to do anything, doesn't matter if you have a military experience or not, or whatever endeavor that you're pushing towards, don't quit and keep going. And that's a recipe for success, if nothing else. And that's, I think David Goggins, sealed that message.
I love Goggins. He's changed my life, man. I've listened to Can't Hurt Me, his book about overcoming, and he had a crazy screwed up life, and he's been able to turn it around. I resonate with that a lot from my life experiences, and it's all about not quitting. And if you can keep commitments to yourself, you start to build trust for yourself. And it's one of those things where I learned even just over the last few years in business where I would quit on myself first. Like I would take the easy way out potentially if I wasn't feeling it or if I had some sort of bullshit excuse. It's all excuses, right? Versus if I had an appointment with someone, like I would never miss that appointment with someone because I almost cared more about that than I did about like holding the appointment for myself, so to speak, in my mind. And so once I kind of shifted that around, I was like, well, you have to build trust within yourself. You start distrusting yourself if you break commitments to yourself. And so this is something that I worked on over the years, and it's always an ongoing evolution. But I always find it interesting for the people that have that indomitable will and that that ability to never quit, and kind of where that comes from. So, talking about your because we're still in that SF kind of space, where is that taking you around the world, and some of the crazy stuff you've seen, some of the inspirational stuff you've seen? Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that my military experience gave me a rugged edge, or this kind of coarse character building, and that amplified as I earned my Green Beret and started doing missions around the world. I was deployed to Iraq twice, did a lot of training in the U.S., did missions in Europe, in the Arctic, and also in Africa, and also. After the Benghazi thing happened, I was one of the guys that went to Libya to help clean up the mess, so to speak. Yep. And so all these different types of experiences allowed me to remain that whole picture because, in the military, it can be really easy to focus on a single mission of combat, close quarters battle, sniper operations or, counterterrorism operations, and but being able to have that kind of experience, but also having that well-roundedness of, okay, let's now go to the Arctic, or let's go climb mountains, or let's go to these other places around the world. And I think for me, it was kind of like this balance of rugged character building, of seeing the world for what it was, and especially through the military lens. And military forces around the world, and then also being able to, take a look at the country, take a look at the culture from the kind of softer side, to where I'm looking at this military rugged, crushing it, shooting guns, blowing stuff up, but at the same time I'm looking like, man, there's some beautiful scenery, there's some really incredible places that I've been able to visit because of that, both in my military missions and being able to just travel because I had the means to while in the military, and just, living in Europe for almost 5 years. So I think that those types of experiences afforded me this continued of well-roundedness, and to be able to have the perspective of changing perspectives, and not just being able to only have one pair of glasses on my whole life, but being able to interchange them, as I see fit, or as other people help me identify that, hey, maybe you should check out, this thing from another perspective or another view, so I think those things are, from a macro perspective, really allowed me to propel into, things that I'm doing outside of the military.
Beautiful, brother. Most interesting, crazy, or almost life-threatening operation you've been on that you can talk about? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, of course, combat operations, that's, everybody talks about that kind of stuff. And, I think for me though, I don't really talk about it too much, but, the uncertainty factor is a huge thing in the military. And, a lot of times you hear combat operations in the beginning stages. I was a little bit too young to be, the first couple of years for that. So my, combat operations was later. A lot of stuff was already settled. There was logistics, there was, these kinds of support elements there. But when I was in Africa, there was, a handful of guys, and that was it. And being in an uncertain environment to where, there's a lot of room between me, my team, and QRF or support elements to help me if, shit hit the fan. Yeah. And especially the situation where that was kind of what realized the Benghazi thing is that there wasn't help, in a timely manner. So being in that same country and operating and being able to live with that uncertainty was a big eye opener for me personally. And of course my team. But it was really like, man, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I just continue to move forward, shed the fear, or at least operate with a sense of purpose and know that, fear may creep up or uncertainty may creep up, but the certainty that I found in myself and the reliance on my team members was something that I really dug into. And that translated into, part of something that Stephen and I teach, especially in our new book, is that you may not know exactly what the world is going to happen, what's going to happen in the world. It may be uncertain, like 2020, who knows exactly how it's going to end, right? But we as individuals, our personal individual journey, we can take each step with certainty, knowing that things are going to be all right, that we're going to be able to figure it out. And we may not be able to know exactly what the plan is. We may not know exactly what the outcome is, but we can walk each step with certainty and to be able to know that to our core, trust ourselves, and just know everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, brother. The internal knowing that you get, right? And that new frame of mind that you move forward with into the next phase of life, which is kind of, what I want to go into. So was it hard hanging up the boots, so to speak? And what did that next transition look like leaving Army, SF? Because the big thing there is identity for a lot of people, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're, a military, person, you're really focused on the identity of that for a lot of people. You're focused on the lifestyle. You're focused on, this is who I am when I put on the jersey or put on the uniform. And then stepping away from that, a lot of times people have this weird shift of like, who am I? How do I operate in this new world? So what was that like for you? Like, were you ready to leave, and what did you do next?
Yeah, so it was one of the most difficult times in my life, like especially the internal conflict, because I was a E7, but I was in an E8 role, and so I was acting team sergeant for the time that I was deciding to get out. So here I am, a person, soldier, Green Beret in an E8 position, and I'm mentoring other E7s and E6s that are on my team. This is exactly how you should operate to advance your career. This is how you crush it. This is how you gain the things that you want in the military. And here I am thinking about, okay, I'm thinking about getting out. So this like internal conflict of like telling people what to, this is how you do it, but this is what I'm thinking about. And so internally that was, ball crushing, to say lightly. And, through that time, it was, deciding how, having that conversation with my wife, and we were living in Germany at the time. And it was one of those things where, you just had to go with your gut. You had to go with you had to trust yourself. And, for me, I just knew something deep down inside said, you know what, you gotta get out. You gotta go do this other thing. And the worst part about it was, one, I didn't know what I was going after. What was that thing that I was going to do when I got out? And two, to be able to leave something that you're really good at, to be skilled in a job or some kind of work that was, of course, meaningful because it was, part of the military. And then on top of that, in special operations, and so all these things were just like in this, like, oh, why, this is the most difficult part, for me, because, our life is in our own hands.
Yep.
And we decide what our life is going to be, both in these big moments, like, life changing, fork in the road moments, but also the deciding factor of, am I going to do this tiny little thing today, or am I not?
Yep.
And just as a side note, the faster that you can remove the pedestalness of big decisions, yes, and put all decisions on an even playing field, that way that, you know what, I'm going to decide to make some coffee and I'm going to enjoy it. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to go do this really crazy thing that potentially going to change my life. Cool, I'm going to go try it. And without putting any of this pedestalness, so, but at the time I put a lot of emphasis on this decision because, life changing, of course.
For sure. How many years did you serve total?
12 years, okay. Just under 12 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, we decided, and my wife and I, we were in Germany. We left Germany. We came back to the U.S. and we did this incredible 37 state, cross the country road trip. Beautiful. Over 3 months. And, all part of the plan of getting out and having fun and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, we moved down to Panama, Central America, for about a year and a half. And so, all these things were, intentional, and being able to live intentionally while figuring stuff out, I think is a recipe for getting where you want to get in life in a fast manner. And so what I mean by that is that, we were having a lot of fun on the road trip and down in Panama, a lot of traveling, a lot of exploring, a lot of just having fun. But simultaneously, in tandem, parallel, I was trying to figure out, what the hell am I going to do? What really drives me? Who am I really? And so all these things are happening simultaneously. And I think that having that balance of, doesn't matter how hard I'm going to try to figure out myself, figure out my identity, my purpose, what I need to be doing in life. If I embed quality of life, if I embed the fun, if I embed this playfulness into the mix, yeah, it's going to be that much more enjoyable of a journey to get there.
Without a doubt, dude. I talk about this all the time. And we were just talking about a gentleman named Paul Chek before we jumped on, the podcast. And, he's big into even, in his mid to late 50s, and he's, big into health and wellness and spirituality and all these just, beautiful things. One thing that he's big into that I've always been a natural at is being a big kid at heart. Like I love being a big kid. Like I don't want to grow up. And they've done studies all around the world in these places called blue zones, like Okinawa and different places where people are living so long and so healthy and so empowered. And a big part of it is community, playing, and staying creative. And if you can be around people that you love and that you want to share time with, and if you're singing or you're creating something, playing sports or playing, I mean, these things keep your quality of life, which is a huge narrative for you and Steven in the book, Humble Alpha. It's what makes it sweet. Like, I mean, what's the point of working 80 hours, 90 hours a week if you hate your life and you're killing yourself and you're not getting any sleep and, you're not seeing your family and, you just miss life. We're not guaranteed the next second. The big thing for me, I learned in my life, not so much in the military, because I was a squid, which is a slang term for Navy, and we didn't see much action on what I was doing. But I've seen a lot of death elsewhere, and it's really given me this perspective of just the quality of a moment and the value of a moment. And it's important to enjoy each and every moment is where I'm going with that. So for you and making this transition, you finally kind of start seeing the world for what it is, and you're going on your exit tour, so to speak, where you're going to these different places and you're traveling around 37 different states, and you're going to Panama and all this amazing things you're probably experiencing. Were you kind of just recentering, learning about yourself, and then what was the next move from there? Was it something business wise? Was it an inspiration for the book? Was it spirituality? Like, what was happening during that time?
Yeah, a lot of things were happening. Yeah. And at this time I was really trying to figure it out. And I emphasize that because that's not the most advantageous way to go about life. Figuring out or trying to figure it out will lead you to more figuring out. And so where you place your focus and attention and intention of the life that you desire or the feeling that you want to feel, that is the secret of getting what you want. Yep. And if you place your emphasis on figuring it out, you're going to get more figuring it out. If you place your emphasis on, there's a lesson here for me to learn in life, well, life is going to give you more lessons. Like and so if you're on this path, which everybody is, that every single step you take, you are encountered with some kind of like lesson post, like left, right, every single step, there's a lesson and you're taking it in. That's great, but the idea of I have to always learn something from everything, life is going to give you that. And so I was trying to figure it out at this time. And I was trying a lot of different things. And of course I was having a lot of fun. I was exploring myself. I was trying these different types of groups, different types of industries. And, I settled on, concretely with travel and using travel as a tool for transformation. And Stephen and I, we still do that. That's not my main thing now. But, so I was trying a lot of different things, but looking back, it was like, man, I'm trying to figure everything out. And instead of me just figuring out what I want to desire, and I really can't understate, I can't really say that enough because it's such a powerful shift when you change your focus on trying to figure it out versus this is what I desire.
Yep.
And there's a lot of quantum stuff. There's a lot of quantum mechanics and
talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. I'm a practitioner, but I'm not a teacher of that stuff. There's a lot of great teachers out there. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden. There's a lot of great guys out there. So if you're listening to this, check those guys out. They're really qualified to speak on it.
Have you had any experience with for yourself kind of being a guinea pig with like binaural beats and brain entrainment, any of that stuff yet? Like, because I follow Dr. Joe Dispenza and a bunch of other people that are in that space. And there's, I'm getting to the point now where it's hit me enough times, especially there's this other guy I follow. He's called the Certified Health Nut. He's really funny. He's on Instagram. He's just kind of like out there. He's a disciple of Paul Chek. And he's just a really, interesting guy, but basically, he went through a really bad divorce and he had to rebuild himself back up from the ground and just change who he was. He wasn't happy with who he was. And not that this is everything, but one of the things he was talking about was, using binaural beats for brain entrainment. And then, one of the things he did was teach himself basically how to become wealthy. And like, it just kind of, the intention and the work that he was doing. Have you ever done anything like that you've seen it play out in your life, whether it's binaural beats, whether it's, anything you've learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza or Bruce Lipton that you've implemented that have led to a very real, very tangible outcome?
Yeah. And so, tangible is subjective, right? Yeah. So an incredible day of synchronicity is, for somebody that's watching or listening to it or observing it, isn't all that profound, but you feeling like, damn, every single thing that happened today was just on top of each other, exactly what it needed to be. And I'm feeling incredible, and living day after day. That's what I strive for. And so for me, there's a couple of critical books. First one is The Body Keeps the Score. And what this book is, basically imprinted on me is that every single moment we are imprinting something in our mind and on our body. And basically what that means is that every experience that we've had in our life thus far has built us to who we are today. And so all your habits, all your experiences, every thought, every belief that you have is determining your default or your automatic mode now, right? And so by knowing that, we can then reprogram ourselves. We can instill the right habits, both consciously and subconsciously. And so you speak of the isochronic tones, the binaural beats, and I've used those for over 12 years. Yeah. Maybe a little bit longer. And so I've been using that for a long time for meditation, for focus. And they've gotten, that much more advanced nowadays. And we can talk about the brainwave states, but all these are incredible tools to help you get what you want faster. And, for me, it's really about, setting the intention. So I do my own morning meditation. Like I've recorded it, and I embedded isochronic tones. Can
you break that down for us? Cause I'm about to nerd out with you on all this stuff. So in terms of like what the formatting is, like what you're doing during the meditation, how long the meditation is, all that stuff.
Yeah, so I have I'm actually developing a 2.0 right now, actually. But the first version of it is 30 minutes long, and there's a music, an isochronic tone that goes from alpha to theta to delta, and even to what's epsilon, and that it also has embedded in it with I'm trying to remember the other term and the other thing. But anyways, so basically, it's taking your brainwave down, and it's slowing your brain down to where you're that much more receptive. And so, in macro terms, most of us are in beta, in a waking state. And as we lower our state and slow our brain down, we're able to be that much more effective on imprinting an idea, a belief, or being able to send a prayer out to the quantum field. So this is getting kind of advanced stuff if you're not familiar with it. But basically, your thoughts become that much more potent whenever you lower your brainwave state. And so that's what my morning meditation has that underneath, as a audio file, or as music in the background.
Where did you get that audio file? Did you create it? Did you source it from someone else that had proven that it's effective? Like where did you get that audio file?
Yeah, so that one is by a company called I Awake.
Okay.
And it's a track called Infinity.
Okay.
And it's a really, really powerful, it's actually an hour-long track, but it's really incredibly powerful if you're familiar with brainwave states. And it really gets you into this very connected, very mystical type of meditation experience. So that's where that's the audio. That's where I got it. So I'm not into making that kind of music just yet, but I have quite a few of ideas on that I would like to collaborate in the near future. But so for the actual sequence of the meditation, it starts out with this exact moment is perfect. And just starting from there, of removing judgment of anything, and really getting grounded in this present moment, because every single moment is perfect. And then, it just kind of goes through a couple of different, smaller things, but basically it's allowing you to give out good intentions to the world, and for me, it's giving out love. And so I start out with my family, friends, people that are closest to me, and I just feel it, and I send it out, and then I send it out to strangers in my neighborhood, cities around the country, countries around the world, continents, in the whole world. And so it goes all the way up. And basically through this sequence, it's just me being encompassed by this good feeling of sending good intentions, sending love out into the world. And so what this does is this primes me to be filled with that frequency. And so I'm already vibrating at this frequency. And then from that position, then I start to talk about how I want my day to go, and basically mapping out my day. And the secret behind all this is getting into that state of feeling. And whenever you're in that state, you're able to then radiate your intentions, and being able to amplify that with it's called brain heart coherence. And so basically your brain starts out with the intention because it's the mental, but then your heart is the amplifier of that's radiating out into this quantum field of, and if you want to call it a prayer, you can call it that. If you want to call it setting intentions, you can call it that too. But it's what you desire.
Yep.
And the most critical part is feeling that it already happened, that you already have it, that you're feeling it right now, and being able to tap into that. And this is the key difference between figuring it out and focusing on what you actually desire.
Yep.
Because if you send a prayer out and you say, I'm ready for the next step, you're always going to be ready. Like you're on the starting line and you're like, all right,
yep.
I'm ready.
Yep.
I'm ready. And you're not asking for the gun to go off. Right. You're not asking to be in the race. So you're not feeling, so just visualize this right now as you're listening, that the difference between running 100 meters and feeling the wind in your hair and you're moving fast and you're breathing hard and you're feeling it versus like you're at the starting line still and you're like, I'm ready, so those are, the big, that's a big thing to think about right there.
Yep. Yeah. It's the feeling. And not to cut you off, but basically like there's this, thing that I've heard a long time ago that if you want to live, like, let's say you want to live in a beautiful neighborhood or you want to drive a car, if those things matter to you, right? Which is fine if they do, but you got to go put yourselves in those elements and feel them. So maybe go test drive that car, maybe go drive through that neighborhood, get out and walk and see what it would feel like to actually be there. And so that's the quantum piece where you're kind of, time hasn't caught up with reality yet, but you're putting the intention and the effort and living in that space and feeling it and calling it into your reality. And another piece, before we go back to kind of the step-by-step that you're talking about, another piece for people to understand, at least from what I've learned about, brain entrainment and really just kind of crafting the life that you want, how powerful this is going back in the day where, and I guess people still do this, but when people watch TV, and, as the day goes on and they become, tired and less mentally focused, they start to kind of sit back and go through these different brain waves. And like late at night, you're basically becoming so suggestible that, even when my grandmother, who's since passed, but, when she was in her 80s and 90s, she would say, turn on my program. And the word program is specifically used from these companies because they're literally programming your mind. And so 100%. if TV obviously can do that because it's so suggestible and it dulls you down and it gets you into this brainwave state of suggestibility, then you can use this power for good as well, is basically where I'm going with it. So just to go buy some crap they're selling you on, the infomercials, use it to build a life you want to live. And so jumping back to you and just kind of going through your practice, is this something that's daily? Is it hard to do daily for you, or you just kind of built it into your habits? And is it first thing in the morning? Is it after a workout? Like, when are you actually doing it?
Yeah. So, I just want to touch on something before I jump into that.
Please. Yeah.
There's the power of the placebo.
Yeah.
And there's if you're listening to this, go check out the power of the placebo. There's a lot of research out there. Joe Dispenza has some good information on it. But basically the idea is this, that people can take a sugar pill or a saline injection and believe that they're getting the medicine to have that effect of whatever that medicine is supposed to be. And so taking that one step further, meditation can be a placebo effect. And so basically it's all about the power of belief. And it's a really incredibly powerful thing. And basically what this meditation is this is convincing you that via almost, if you want to call it a placebo effect, basically without any external thing outside of yourself. And basically you're just using your mind and your body to be able to create the life you desire or create the feelings that you want, create the connections and people that you want in your life. And so that's definitely a area in which to be like, damn, that's really a thing, and everybody inherently knows it because it's talked about in the medical community, but it's kind of almost brushed off to where it's unspoken, to where maybe people don't want to be awoken by that powerful aspect that we have within ourselves.
Yep.
So getting back to the meditation, it's the painting the picture for the day, feeling what I'm going to feel, the week, the month, and the year, and then it ends with basically just this peaceful silence for a couple 5 minutes actually. So I do the meditation immediately upon waking up, and I do this because whenever you get out of sleep, you're already in a low brainwave state, and so like you were saying before, the lower brainwave state you are, the more suggestible that you are. Yep. And so by being able to, instead of me getting up, doing some push-ups, having some coffee, doing a workout or whatever, that's going to elevate me in beta almost always. And so by me waking up and immediately putting on the meditation, that allows me to basically get into that cycle of, theta, maybe even some delta, and then being able to use that suggestible state, that brainwave state, to then amplify my desires or amplify my good intentions out in the world. And so that's why I do it right after I wake up.
Oh yeah, brother. we could talk about this stuff for days. I'm into all this, like the power of the mind and the power of intention. And there's even other ways that you can tap into these things. And so if we could shift into that a little bit with your experience with your walk with spirituality and plant medicines and how you found that, how it found you. I feel like sometimes things find me probably. Like I've learned over the years that whenever I find a book, it's found me at the perfect time and the right time. And it's something that I need to hear or need to feel and learn. And I feel like that's pretty much life a lot of ways too, is things happen when they're supposed to. And if you're open and you're receptive and you're your vibration is where you want it to be or where it should be, these things can be life-changing and beautiful and exactly what you needed. So how did you find out about some more of these spiritual, people call them woo-woo topics, but things that you're into today with like plant medicines and all these different things that you do?
Yeah. So my fundamental belief behind it is that there's an invisible realm that creates the material world that I live in personally. And that, I believe that happens for everybody. And so underlying all of this, material goals or action that we take in life, whether that's business or having fun or whatever, underlying all that is this invisible thing. When you want to call it mindset, you want to call it the quantum field, you want to call it your beliefs, your intentions. And so as I was searching for all this stuff, trying to figure it out, right? I figured out that there's this kind of invisible quantum unspoken thing. And so I started looking into what is that? What truths can I find in all this? And so eventually I came to a place where my business partner and co-author, Stephen Kuhn, where we actually met in Peru in search for truth or my truth or the truth or whatever I thought I was trying to find at the time. Right. And, so the way Stephen and we met, it was pretty synchronistic in and of itself. Him and I were both veterans. We were both part of a group called the Vetpreneur Tribe. And one day he had wrote a post and basically said, "Hey, I just went to this masculine awakening ceremony and it was really profound and life-changing," and bam, and I was like, wait, what is that? That just really intrigued me because, it's just like, that was the kind of vocabulary or message or way that thing came to me. I was ready for that thing at that time. And so, so I hit him up and I was like, "Hey man, what is that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's this stuff down in Peru, let me know when you go down there." And so months go by and my wife and I were living down in Panama. Friends of ours, they had just visited Peru and they came back and we were talking about it over lunch. And, we looked at each other, we're like, we got to go to Peru. And so right after that lunch, we bought tickets and then I hit Stephen up. I was like, "Hey, what was that thing you were talking about?" And so he linked me up to the people that we now work with down in Peru, Another Planet Peru. Really great people, been doing this for 25 years plus. They do it all over the world.
How long have you been on the journey yourself?
What's that?
How long have you been doing this journey for yourself in Peru?
Since 2017, I think.
Okay. So you got a few years under your belt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't intentionally, we were intentionally going to do plant medicine. I didn't know of it. I maybe heard of it, but I had no clue about it.
Right.
And so we were looking at the itinerary because there was like, okay, Machu Picchu, Sacred Valley, Pisac, all these cool places and stuff. And then there was this thing on the itinerary that said Wachuma ceremony. And I was like, what is that? I didn't really question it, in the beginning, but then it was just like, okay, we're getting like month or 2 months out. And I was like, "Hey, what is that?" He's like, "Oh, it's called San Pedro, and or another name for San Pedro." And so anyway, we found out this is a sacred plant medicine. And Stephen was able to actually join us. Things just started working out. And, that's why I said, him and I meeting in Peru for the first time was very synchronistic. And, some kind of higher thing was making sure that happened. So we had an incredible time. We explored a lot of sacred places in Peru. And we also partook in the sacred plant medicine ceremonies.
Yep.
And, so these are really potent, incredibly powerful experiences for those that have never experienced or have never really dove into it. And it's one of those things where, like you said, it's going to call you.
Yeah.
And if this kind of conversation intrigues you, or what is that? Or let me research that a little bit, or let me talk to somebody that's done that, you're automatically digging into your curiosity. And that curiosity is trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
And whether that's something that's going to reveal you down a path or just reveal a truth to you at that time, you'll know, because you'll either, be curious and find out about it and then want to take the next step and say, you know what, I think I want to try this, or this, I think this experience is calling me. And so I think that, it starts out with intrigue, it starts out with curiosity,
yep.
But underlying all of that is a fundamental question that you're trying to figure out, whether that's, who am I? What is my purpose? What should I be doing right now? What are the things that I need to be letting go of in order for me to become my greatest self? And so almost always those are the questions that we're asking ourselves, especially in the beginning stages of this kind of journey, to be able to have that experience, get the answers that you want, and also get the answers that you need, because I think we talked about that last week, but it's it's a vast topic, vast subject, and it's really incredibly potent. And, I think it's just an incredible thing that Mother Nature and whoever else that conjured up these sacred plant medicines to be here for us, to allow us to have powerful experiences, to awaken the greatness within, and to be able to move on forward in life with incredible certainty, clarity, and fun too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had these types of conversations on the podcast before, and people kind of know that I'm in this space personally, at least on my journey, and I've been called to it. You just know that you've been called to it. Like it's a knowing, right? And so speaking on that knowing, anytime you sit with a sacred plant medicine, for people that maybe haven't heard me speak about this before, but sacred plant medicines can be things like ayahuasca or San Pedro Huachuma, or psilocybin mushrooms. These things have been around, given to us from nature, from the gods, from the aliens, wherever they came from. They were given to us for a purpose, and they have a wisdom about them, so much so that when you sit in ceremony, which is the way that you should do these things with experts that have done these things and know what to do, whether they're shamans in Peru or people that have done this many times themselves, and they're good, trustworthy people. When you sit with these medicines with an intention going into these things and an open heart and just a beautiful space, you come back with what's called downloads, or just knowing. You just know certain things that can profoundly change your life moving forward. And these tools have been coming through a resurgence, a renaissance in a sense, especially in the space of like veterans, where it helps with PTSD, anxiety, drug addiction, alcohol abuse. Companies out in California like MAPS, they're doing tons of amazing work with helping people break these cycles and live better lives. And my hope, and what I'm an idealist, I'm a realist and idealist, I believe in a better future. I feel like one day maybe it'll kind of overthrow big pharma if it comes back around. And maybe, who knows, maybe there's too much money. I don't know, but I would like to see that. So kind of just touching on your point, because I want to get to the book before we're done, but touching on the point of your experiences sitting with San Pedro and sitting with ayahuasca or Aya. What are some of the things, what were those experiences like? What did you feel when you were doing them? And what were some of the downloads and the knowledge that you came back with?
Yeah. So each experience is in and of itself tailored to that present moment. And the things that we have questions on, or the need or an aching or a yearning to know, last year is totally different than this year versus next year. So, every single experience is completely different. And, so anybody that is just now starting or starting to research this kind of stuff, just know that everybody's experience is their own experience, and you will have your own experience, exactly what you need. And especially if you have that fundamental macro intention of this experience will be exactly what it needs to be. Yep. And then you can have that as a foundational intention, and you just kind of put that out there. And then you can have a specific intention. And so for me, every time that I do one of these ceremonies, it's about looking within and saying, okay, what thing am I looking at that is distracting me from the bigger picture, or it's distracting me from my higher purpose, or it's holding me back? And oftentimes it's these big red signs, 5 feet in front of us. And this is all that we can look at. And we're looking at it and we're like, what is this? What does this mean? Maybe you can't define it. Maybe it's just this thing that you can only solely focus on. And so by having these kinds of experiences, you can address that red sign and then allow it to be let go, put to the side, or put it in its rightful place, And so things that we're talking about are attachments, or old beliefs or stories that we tell ourselves. That's a really big one that a lot of people believe the things that other people told them about themselves. So what I'm talking about is family, and some of us had great parents, some of us didn't, and those parents that weren't empowering or gave us these beliefs that like, I'm not worthy, or you're not shit, or you're not going to amount up to anything when you grow up. And so as a kid or as a young person, we hold on to those beliefs, those stories that we tell ourselves, and we actually then believe it. We're that powerful of beings that we tell ourselves a story for years and years and years, and we actually believe it, and we look in the world and we say, all right, that person is treating me because of that, because I'm not worthy, and so the reality that we create for ourselves is based on these stories. And so this big red sign right in front of you could be a story that is taking you away from a higher purpose or some kind of better life that you're desiring for yourself, that deep down inside that you deserve, and you're using this experience as a tool to be able to reveal it, identify it, and let it go, if that's the case. And also, so looking at it, there's kind of two main things that are happening. One, you're letting go of stuff, beliefs, stories, and you're putting them where they're at, where they're supposed to be, giving them appreciation and love. But then you're also getting clarity on moving forward. And so that may be a realization. It may be that, you're in this ceremony and you have some kind of vision or some kind of dream or some kind of way you look at the sky or the plants, or, it could be any number of things, is based on what is easiest for you at this moment in time to be able to communicate a powerful message that you need to hear with clarity. And so, all these kinds of experiences are tailored. And for anybody that's thinking about it, you got to just ask yourself, what is behind that? Is there a bigger question that I'm looking for? Is it an experience that I want to be able to tell to Instagram and say, hey, guess what? I just did this crazy thing, man. I saw this cool stuff and, so you got to ask yourself these questions, and, for me, my recommendation is to use this as a sacred tool, but not seriously. Yeah. And so that's something that I've been working on personally, is that, I've kind of used it almost too sacredly and removed the playfulness of it, So,
brother, it's everything that you've done in your life is obviously allowing you to be of service to those around you and to your family and to people in your walk in life, and everything's pointing you. Our life's journey pulls us to places or brings us to places, and through all these experiences that you've had, that we just discussed. Not that it's the culmination, but at least in this season of life, it's pointed you to unleash your humble alpha. I mean, everything that you've done. Military service at a high level. And again, thank you so much for that. And then also, plant medicine work and finding yourself and all these different things. This is sprinkled throughout the book. And there's a lot of things that your learnings and teachings have led you to this point where you can serve on a macro level. I see, it's crazy. I'll see Instagram, I'll see LinkedIn, and I'll see people from all around the world with a copy of their book in their hand. They're like, thanks, Lane. Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate you guys. But you're doing it from a place of service, and you're doing it from a place of experience. And these tools that you've been taught in traditional and non-traditional ways have been implemented into this book. So I want to talk about the book. I want to talk about, what it's been doing and what's going on, everything about the book, just your whole experience with the whole process.
Yeah, so I got to give a shout out to Steven first and foremost. He incredibly experienced, incredibly awesome, great, kind, powerful human being, and without him, this book would not be here. And just got to give him credit and show him some gratitude. And so the book, is a combination of his and I's lives kind of combined. Because when we met in Peru, it was one of those things where it was like, all right, this is a guy that I can, I like this kind of guy, like he's my kind of guy, and so we had the same values, same principles, and it was one of those things where it was like, man, we got to do some stuff together. And so we started doing some stuff, and part of that is our effort to help veterans, veteran entrepreneurs, and we have a veteran entrepreneur group called the Vetpreneur Tribe, about 14,000 veterans, and so all this time we're dissecting our lives and trying to share a powerful message. And it almost seems all over the place because him and I, we live intuitively, we live by principles, values, and these kind of concepts that we talk about, but how do we piece it all together and into a concise, digestible, action steppable type of consumable content? And that's why we started the project of the book. And one of the things the thing that started it was Stephen created these HIT principles: honesty, integrity, and transparency. And that's at the forefront of all the stuff that we do. It's how we live. And we thought we were going to write a book about HIT. And so we started drafting it, and all these other things started popping up, all these different concepts, quality of life, creating space, relational capital, radiant value. And in between that, we were like, okay, well, identity and purpose are just popping up. Like, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this. And so during one of our trips to Peru, we take veterans and entrepreneurs down there, and we came up with this concept of the humble alpha. And it was one of those things where when two people come together and it's like, you have one half and he has the other half, right? Because he had this group called the Humble Man, and I had a group called the Authentic Alpha. And then one day we're like, that's it, the Humble Alpha. And we didn't use it for a while, but we're like, man, that's something right there. And and that term kept lingering and lingering. And so when we started shifting from the book being about HIT to the book being about this full spectrum, how do you put it all together? And it was like, oh, Humble Alpha, like that's definitely it right there. And so, it was a process of, dissecting all these different principles. And, but that was, what the book, or how the book came to be. And so now we're seeing a lot of people implement the action steps, being able to really dig deep into their identity, their purpose, and then being able to use those both and walk, like we said earlier, walk forward with each step with certainty. Maybe not knowing where you're going, maybe not knowing what the outcome is, but being able to take each step with certainty because you know exactly who you are and what you're doing in life.
There's a power to surrendering to the outcome, but also doing the work to get you to kind of like, the trajectory you want to be on. But if you release control of the outcome in a sense and you surrender, it allows you to be free. It allows you to operate in a much different mindset in a different space. And so with the book, how long did it take for y'all to put the book together and get it to market, so to speak, and to get it into people's hands? How long were you actually talking about it, and how was that process? Did you do self-publish? Did you hire? How did that work?
Yeah, so it was about a year.
Okay.
And so from the very beginnings of it. And so we started out with the concept, and then we built up on it. And then we put a concrete blueprint or framework of the book. And basically we figured out, the 5 different sections of the book. And each section has different teaching points. And so what we did was we sat down and figured out what teaching points, what lessons that we wanted to share, like the principles and the concepts. And then we figured out the stories to tell that really drove the concept home, or examples or metaphors. And to make that a very digestible kind of book, because, I'm a guy that looks at the macro. I can see like a really mundane concept and then apply it to 7 different things in life, but I know a lot of people, they like to read books and they like to hear stories. And luckily for us, Steven's got incredible amount of powerful, crazy, awesome stories that really just drive home a lot of these concepts.
Yeah.
And so we chose each story because we wanted to communicate clearly and powerfully each step to the person that's reading the book. And then at the end of each section, we have the action steps. And so what we did is we took each section and we had that blueprint of, the teaching points, stories, and action steps. And then we got interviewed basically. Stephen and I, we got interviewed by another guy, and basically we just talked about it in our own words. And so the power of that was that, when we communicate, we have a different way of expressing the written word versus the spoken word.
Yep.
And so by starting out with the spoken word, we're able to have that tonality, that vocabulary that we normally use when we're telling it to other people. And then, so we did the interviews, for each section. And then from there, we got it transcribed into the written word. And then we had a couple editors, kind of put the pieces together, make it all sound good. And then, there's a lot of editing, of course. And, and then we self-published, and we did a pre-launch. We had proceeds go for that to Generosity Feeds. They fed, millions of kids around the country. And so we did a kind of unique pre-launch. And then, but now it's available on Amazon. It should be available on Audible today, maybe. I don't know. It's been in the process for weeks. So by the time anybody's listening to this, it should be on Audible, available on Amazon, and paperback, Kindle, all that good stuff.
Damn, brother, you're able to get that message out and things that have led you to the path where you are today to help other people. The real question is, would you write another book? Is this one and done, or do you feel like you have more books in you or more things potentially as you go along to serve the world by getting it out to the masses?
Yeah. So there's definitely more to come. There's a Humble Alpha Parenting. I don't know exactly what the title is, but a lot of people that have bought the book are saying they bought the book because they want to teach their sons and daughters to become humble alphas. And, just to be clear, humble alpha, is applicable to both male and female, anybody. But they are buying it because they want to raise their children like that. And Stephen even gave a talk about the humble alpha concepts applied to parenting and applied to children. And also, I haven't said anything. This literally happened last night. Being able to apply the humble alpha to the veteran, right? So this is actually be funny to speak about it right now and then see where it goes. But basically, I had a dream last night, and it was an insight of being able to provide a framework for veterans. So when in the military, we have this sense of purpose. We have this mission greater than ourselves. And then when we get out, it can almost be depressing because okay, what the hell do I do now? Where's my mission? What's my purpose? And being able to define a framework of purpose for a veteran, because deep within a veteran, doesn't matter if you serve 4 years or 40 or whatever, there is a feeling of service. There is a principle of I'm able to serve something greater than myself, something outside of myself. And that is a fundamental thing that people live by and veterans live by. And if you can shift that from having a higher mission to the country versus, hey, let's develop a framework to where we can help veterans overcome PTSD and trauma and various modalities of healing, including plant medicine, including acupuncture, kinesiology, chiropractor, and these other types of retreats that a lot of veterans are going through today, right? Meditation, yoga, and also being able to have a similar mission for veterans that are entrepreneurs, and to be able to lead from the front and influence, great amounts of people to have this kind of mentality of let's change the mission from protecting, freedom for the country to let's help other veterans open up, heal from trauma, step into success and to be able to have each other's back. And so the Humble Alpha plays a really critical foundation for that because, as you said before, identity and purpose are deeply ingrained in not only soldiers and, people that have been in the service, but everybody, athletes, business people, entrepreneurs, people that create anything. And what the Humble Alpha does is really, it sheds away all those accolades, those other titles and roles that we had played in our lives prior. And then we get to the fundamental of who we are, what we would like to express, how we would like to help in the world, and how we can be of service to the greater good that we define for ourselves, that can be complementary and collaborative in nature, that veterans really know how to execute on.
Unbelievable, brother. It's all about that service and leaving people better than you found them. Not that you've had to leave them physically or altogether, but just the value exchange in those interactions is meaningful. And man, I can't wait, brother. So we've talked twice over Zoom, and each time I've always just wanted to continue the conversation. So as soon as those friggin' borders open up in Peru, I cannot wait to be sitting in ceremony with you and Steven and hanging out and just kind of connecting and building life together. So thank you so much for all that you do. And I'm looking forward to the next conversation. But he's the amazing, the mighty, the powerful Lane Belone. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.